The night air in Victoria Island was cool, carrying the distant hum of traffic and the occasional echo of laughter from passing nightclubs. Victor Adeyemi sat alone in his modern, glass-walled apartment, his laptop glowing with architectural sketches. He was Lagos' most sought-after architect, known for designing towers that kissed the sky, yet his heart often felt like an empty shell. He sipped from a half-finished glass of red wine, scrolling absent-mindedly, when his phone buzzed. The notification made his heart pause. A WhatsApp message from a number he hadn't seen in 20 years. Amara. His breath caught in his throat as his fingers trembled over the screen. He tapped it open, expecting maybe a wrong number. But the words pierced his chest like lightning. Victor, we need to talk. He dropped the phone, staring blankly at the ceiling. For years, he had buried her name deep in the vault of his heart. She was his first love, the girl who had disappeared without a trace, leaving him broken and bitter. Why now? He whispered. The phone buzzed again. This time, just one word. Tomorrow? He typed back before fear could stop him. Where? Her reply came instantly. Bristol Cafe. 5 p.m. Victor set the phone down, hands shaking. The ghosts of his past had suddenly come alive, and he knew tomorrow his life would never be the same again. Sleep never came. Instead, memories stormed into his mind like rain on a tin roof. He was 19 again, standing under the mango trees in their small Ibadan neighborhood. Amara, with her bright eyes and laugh that could melt stone, had been the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Victor, the son of a struggling teacher. Their worlds weren't meant to collide, but love had found a way. He remembered sneaking into the library with her, their hands brushing against each other's, pretending to read while secretly writing love notes on torn paper. Victor, promise me, she had whispered once, her head on his shoulder. Promise you what? That no matter what, you'll never stop dreaming big, even if the world laughs at you. He had kissed her forehead then. And promise me you'll never leave. But she did. One morning, she vanished. No calls. No letters. No explanations. He waited for weeks, then months, then years. The pain hardened into anger, and the anger into silence. Yet tonight, her words on his phone had ripped open those wounds again. By dawn, he had made up his mind. He would meet her. He needed answers, even if they shattered him. The Bristol Cafe was tucked into a quiet street in Lekki, with warm yellow lights spilling through its windows. At exactly 5 p.m., Victor walked in, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, his heart thundering like a drum. He scanned the room, and then he saw her. Amara. She was seated at a corner table, dressed in a simple white gown. Time had carved lines on her face, but her eyes, the same deep brown that once held all his tomorrows, still carried the same fire. Yet behind them, something darker lurked. For a moment, neither moved. The world around them blurred. Victor approached slowly, his throat dry. Amara. She stood, trembling. Victor. Their eyes locked, 20 years collapsing into one moment. They sat in silence at first, sipping coffee neither tasted. Finally, he spoke, his voice sharp. You disappeared. Without a word. Do you know what that did to me? Amara lowered her gaze, tears brimming. I didn't want to leave, Victor. I had no choice. No choice. He leaned forward. You promised me forever, Amara. And then you left me to rot in silence. Tell me the truth. Her hands shook as she set her cup down. That's why I called you. Because after 20 years, you deserve the truth. Victor's chest rose and fell heavily. He wasn't ready for what she was about to say, but he knew he needed to hear it. Amara's voice trembled. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't abandonment. It was fear. Victor's brows furrowed. Fear of what? Of who? She corrected softly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a faded photograph. It was of her uncle, Chief Obadike, the powerful tycoon who had always despised Victor. He threatened me, Victor. He told me if I didn't disappear, he would destroy you. And your family. You were nothing but a boy from the slums to him. He said you'd never be worthy of me. Victor's fists clenched. So, you left me to protect me? Tears slid down her cheeks. I thought leaving was saving you. I was young. I was scared. I believed his threats. Victor laughed bitterly. You could have trusted me. We could have fought together. I know. Her voice cracked. And not a day passed that I didn't regret it. But there's more. Something you must know. Victor's chest tightened. What else? Her eyes met his, desperate and raw. I didn't just leave you, Victor. I left carrying something of you. He blinked. What are you saying? Amara whispered the words that would turn his world upside down. You have a daughter. She's 20 years old now. The cafe seemed to collapse around him. Victor's ears rang as if he'd been struck. A daughter? His voice was barely audible. Amara nodded, tears flowing freely. Her name is Kayamika. She was born months after I left. I raised her alone. She's brilliant, strong, and she deserves to know you. Victor's hand trembled as he gripped the table. Memories of what could have been, her first steps, her first words, her birthdays, all stolen from him. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked with both rage and sorrow. I tried, Victor. I wrote letters. Dozens. But none reached you. He intercepted them. Chief Obadike controlled everything. Victor's jaw tightened, anger coursing through his veins. So, for 20 years, my daughter grew up thinking I abandoned her? Yes, Amara whispered. And now she's grown. She's in London, searching for answers. Searching for the father she never knew. Victor buried his face in his hands, his breath uneven. Amara reached across the table, her hand trembling over his. I know I can't undo the past, but you deserve to meet her, and she deserves the truth. Victor lifted his eyes, fire burning in them. Then I'll find her, no matter what it takes. She's my blood, my daughter, and I won't lose her again. For the first time in years, Victor felt his life shift. The empire he had built, the towers he had designed, none of it mattered now. Only one thing did, reuniting with the daughter he never knew he had. Victor sat in his car long after leaving the cafe, the city lights of Lagos blurring past his window. His chest felt heavy, as though a mountain had been placed on it. A daughter. 20 years lost. The next evening, Amara called. Victor, there's something I kept. You need to see it. They met again, this time at her modest apartment in Suralere. When Victor entered, he saw a small wooden box sitting on the table. Amara pushed it toward him. These are the letters Kayamika wrote for you as a child. She never stopped asking about her father. I told her stories of you, but she always wanted more. She wrote these, hoping one day you'd read them. Victor's hands trembled as he opened the box. Dozens of envelopes, some written in childish scrawls, others more mature, filled the box to the brim. He picked one randomly. A letter in purple crayon. Dear Daddy, Mommy says you are far away, but you are strong like a hero. I hope you will come to my birthday. I will be 7. I will keep cake for you. Victor's eyes blurred with tears. He clutched the letter to his chest. Another one caught his eye, written in a teenage hand. Dear Dad, I don't know if you even exist. If you do, why haven't you looked for me? Why haven't you fought for me? Sometimes I hate you, but sometimes I miss you. Victor slammed the letter down, his voice breaking. She thought I abandoned her. She hated me. Amara's voice quivered. Not always. She longed for you too. That's why it's time, Victor. She's old enough. She deserves to hear your side. Victor wiped his tears roughly, his jaw tightening. Then I'll make sure she knows. I'll bring her home. Victor began to dig. His instincts as an architect taught him that every structure, no matter how tall, had weak points. And now, his life structure was built on secrets. He hired a private investigator to trace Kayamika in London. At the same time, his curiosity turned to Chief Obadike, the shadow who had ripped his life apart. One evening, Victor met his longtime friend and journalist, Kunnel. Kunnel, Victor said, sliding a folder across the table. I need everything you can find on Chief Obadike. Financials, properties, scandals. Leave nothing out. Cunnel raised an eyebrow. You're taking on a man like him? He's untouchable. Victor's voice was cold. No one is untouchable. That night, as Victor scrolled through his father's old files, something caught his eye. A deed. Land in Lecky, signed in his late father's name. Land that was no longer in their family. Victor whispered, his voice laced with rage. Obadike. He realized the truth. Amara's uncle hadn't just destroyed their love. He had stolen from his family too. And now Victor was determined to take it all back. Amara finally opened up fully. They sat in her living room, the quiet hum of a generator in the background, as she recounted everything. When I left, she began, I went to London. I was barely 20. I had no money, no family, except Chief Obadike's shadow always following me. I worked in restaurants, washed floors, anything to feed Kayamika. Victor listened, torn between anger and admiration. Amara continued, her voice softer now. I told Kayamika stories of you, that her father was brilliant, that he built towers in his mind. But as she grew older, she began to ask why you weren't there. I didn't know how to explain. Tears slid down her cheeks. I watched her blow out candles every year, praying one day you'd walk through the door. But that day never came. She thought you didn't care. Victor's voice cracked. I cared, Amara. I cared every second of my life. I just didn't know. She reached for his hand, her touch trembling. And now you do. But be careful. If Obadike learns you're digging into this, he won't stop until he ruins you again. Victor squeezed her hand back. Let him try. I've built myself from the ground up before. And this time, I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for my daughter. Days turned into nights of restless pacing. Victor's once orderly apartment now looked like the office of a man possessed. Letters scattered, maps pinned on walls, legal documents stacked in piles. Cunnel returned with files. Victor, you were right. Obadike took your father's land. He used shell companies, bribed officials, and turned it into a luxury estate. He's worth billions now. Victor's eyes darkened. He built his empire on my father's grave. He collapsed into his chair, burying his face in his palms. Memories of his father's struggles, of his mother's tears, came flooding back. And now the knowledge that his daughter had grown up thinking he abandoned her, it was too much. Victor, Cunnel said gently, you can't drown in the past. Focus on your daughter. She's still alive. She still needs you. Victor looked up, tears streaking his face. But will she even want me? I wasn't there. She has every reason to hate me. Amara, standing quietly in the corner, spoke softly. She doesn't hate you, Victor. She's just wounded. Deep down, she has always wanted to know you. You just have to prove you're not the man she thinks you are. Victor clenched his jaw. Then I'll prove it, even if it takes the rest of my life. Victor's investigation deepened. Late one night, as rain pounded against his apartment windows, he uncovered a hidden trail in Obadike's files, proof of illegal land acquisitions, offshore accounts, and bribes to government officials. But as he stared at the evidence, a chilling realization struck him. If this came out, Obadike would fall, but Amara could be dragged into the scandal too, as his niece. Victor's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. He answered cautiously. A cold voice on the other end said, Mr. Adeyemi, stop digging. Some truths are better left buried. If you love your daughter, you'll let this go. The line went dead. Victor's blood ran cold. They knew. They were watching. Amara, who had overheard, grabbed his arm. Victor, this is what I feared. He won't stop. He'll destroy you. Victor looked at her, his eyes burning with determination. Then let him come. He took my love. He took my years. He took my family's land. He will not take my daughter. The rain outside intensified, as though Lagos itself was warning him. But Victor's mind was made up. The war against Chief Obadike had just begun. The day came faster than Victor expected. Cunnel's investigator called with news. Kayamika booked a flight to Lagos. She arrives tonight. Victor's chest tightened. 20 years of longing and regret condensed into a few hours of anticipation. At Murtala Muhammad Airport, Victor stood nervously, adjusting his jacket, scanning faces in the arrival hall. Then, through the crowd, he saw her. Kayamika. Tall, graceful, with sharp features that mirrored Amara's beauty but carried Victor's piercing eyes. She walked with confidence, dragging her suitcase, earphones plugged in, but her expression was cold and unreadable. Amara rushed to hug her daughter. Kayamika. Mom, she said softly, hugging back. Then her gaze landed on Victor. She froze. Amara smiled faintly, tears brimming. Kayamika, this is your father. Victor's throat tightened. Kayamika, he whispered, I. But before he could finish, she raised her hand sharply. Don't, she said, her voice firm. You don't get to call yourself my father. The words sliced through Victor like a blade. They sat later that night in Amara's apartment, the silence heavy as thunderclouds. Kayamika leaned against the wall, arms folded, her face unreadable. Victor sat across, his hands trembling as he tried to find words. Kayamika, he began. I didn't know. I swear. If I had known. She cut him off coldly. Don't make excuses. For 20 years, I lived without a father. Do you know what that feels like? Victor's voice cracked. Every day of my life I felt something missing, but I never knew you existed. Then why didn't you look? She snapped. Did I mean so little? Amara tried to step in. Kayamika, listen. No, Mom. Her eyes blazed with hurt. You kept telling me my father was strong, brilliant, honorable. But where was he when I cried myself to sleep? Where was he when boys mocked me at school for not having a dad? Where was he when you were sick, and I had to take care of you? Her voice broke. He wasn't there. Victor's eyes filled with tears. You're right. I wasn't. But not by choice. Your uncle, I don't care about your excuses. Kayamika shot back. I don't need a father now. Especially not you. With that, she stormed into the guest room, slamming the door. Victor sat motionless, shattered. Amara whispered, her own tears falling. Give her time, Victor. Her pain runs deep, but so does her need for you. The next morning, tension still lingered in the air. But before it could be resolved, tragedy struck. Amara was preparing breakfast when suddenly her hands trembled. A glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. She gasped, clutching her chest, and collapsed. Mom, Kayamika screamed, rushing to her side. Victor grabbed the phone, his voice shaking. Ambulance. Now. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically. Hours later, a weary physician approached them. She has advanced lymphoma, he said gravely. It's been progressing quietly. We'll start treatment immediately, but it's serious. Victor's world spun. He gripped the doctor's arm. Do whatever it takes. Spare no expense. Kayamika's eyes brimmed with tears. Why didn't she tell me? Why did she hide this? Victor placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. For a moment, she didn't shrug it off. That night, sitting by Amara's bedside, Kayamika held her mother's hand tightly. Victor stood on the other side, his heart breaking. Amara opened her eyes weakly. Victor, Kayamika, promise me you won't let anger destroy you. Promise me you'll stand together. Kayamika looked away, unable to respond. Victor whispered, voice breaking, we promise. But in his heart, he knew the road ahead would be anything but easy. Hospital corridors became their battlefield. Victor arranged the best doctors, sparing no cost. But Kayamika, still bitter, viewed every action with suspicion. You think money fixes everything? She snapped one evening when Victor paid for an experimental treatment. You can't just throw cash at this to make up for 20 years. Victor's patience snapped. I'm trying, Kayamika. I can't change the past, but I can fight for her now. For both of you. She glared. You're fighting for your conscience, not for me. You want to look like a hero after abandoning us. The words stung like fire. Amara, frail but alert, whispered from her bed. Enough, both of you. Don't let me watch you tear each other apart. but the bitterness lingered. Meanwhile, whispers began to spread in the city. Connell's articles on Chief Obadiah's shady land deals gained traction. Rumors of corruption filled the air. Obadiah's empire trembled. Victor saw an opportunity. If we bring him down, maybe Kayamika will finally see who kept us apart, he told Connell. But Amara shook her head weakly. Don't make this about revenge. Make it about healing. Victor's jaw tightened. Sometimes, healing only comes after justice. The scandal broke like a storm. Connell's headline blazed across Nigerian media. Chief Obadiah implicated in land fraud scheme. Millions stolen. Details of bribery, offshore accounts, and illegal seizures filled the papers. Social media erupted with outrage. Government officials distanced themselves, while protesters gathered outside Obadiah's mansion, demanding justice. In his office, Victor watched the chaos unfold on TV. His fists clenched with satisfaction. Connell called. We did it, Victor. He's finished. But Victor wasn't smiling. Deep inside, he knew this war wasn't over. At the hospital, Amara watched the news from her bed. She looked at Victor with weary eyes. Is this what you wanted? She asked softly. Victor nodded slowly. It's what he deserved. But then Kayamika entered, her eyes blazing with anger. You think this makes you a father? Destroying my uncle won't fix anything. You just want revenge. Victor stood, his voice firm. Your uncle stole 20 years from us. He stole my father's land. He stole you from me. This isn't just revenge, it's justice. Kayamika's lips trembled. Justice won't heal my mother. It won't give me back the childhood I lost. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stormed out. Victor sat heavily, guilt and triumph clashing in his heart. For the first time, he realized justice and reconciliation were not the same battle. This section will cover Kayamika's turning point, Amara's final wish, reconciliation, rebuilding the legacy, and a powerful full-circle ending. I'll keep it cinematic, dialogue-driven, and emotionally gripping, about 2,000 to 2,200 words total. The hospital corridor was silent except for the beeping of machines behind closed doors. Kayamika leaned against the wall, her phone buzzing with messages from friends in London. She ignored them, staring blankly. Her heart was torn. Her uncle had called earlier, his voice dripping with venom. That man is using you, Kayamika. He's ruining our family name. Stay away from him. But then she thought of her mother, pale and weak, begging them not to fight. Later that evening, she returned to Amara's room. Victor was already there, adjusting the blanket carefully. For the first time, Kayamika saw him not as a stranger, but as a man desperately trying to make up for lost time. Her voice softened. Why now, Victor? Why fight for me after all these years? Victor looked at her, his eyes filled with pain. Because I never had the chance before. But now that I know you exist, I'd rather die than lose you again. Kayamika's lips trembled, though she tried to hide it. She turned away quickly, whispering, We'll see. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it wasn't rejection either. Amara's health deteriorated rapidly. Doctors whispered grimly in hallways, and nurses moved with quiet urgency. One evening, she asked to see both Victor and Kayamika together. They sat by her bedside. Amara reached out weakly, placing one hand on each of theirs. My time is short, she whispered. I've lived with regret for too long. Don't repeat my mistake. Don't let pride steal your chance at love. Kayamika's tears fell freely. Mom, don't say that. You'll get better. Amara smiled faintly. If not for me, then for each other. Victor, promise me you'll never stop fighting for her. And Kayamika, promise me you'll give him a chance to be what he should have been all along, your father. Kayamika sobbed, burying her face in her mother's hand. Victor's own tears slid silently. I promise, he whispered. Amara closed her eyes, a peaceful smile gracing her lips. For the first time in years, she looked free of burden. That night, Kayamika sat alone in the hospital garden. Victor found her there, sitting on a bench, staring at the night sky. He approached slowly. Kayamika. She didn't turn, but her voice was softer now. All my life, I hated you. I thought you abandoned us. I told myself I didn't care, but deep down, I always wondered. Who was my father? Did he ever think of me? Victor's voice cracked. Every building I designed, every tower I raised, I wished you were there to see it. I wished I had someone to share it with. I didn't know your face, but I carried you in my soul. Kayamika finally turned, her eyes brimming with tears. Then why does it hurt so much to hear it now? Because 20 years were stolen from us, Victor whispered. But if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life giving them back. She studied him for a long moment, then finally, for the first time, leaned against his shoulder. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, she murmured. Victor wrapped an arm gently around her. Then let me earn it. One day at a time. Amara's condition worsened, but in her weakness, she smiled seeing Victor and Kayamika together, speaking without shouting, sitting without bitterness. Victor introduced Kayamika to the Adeyemi family estate. Photos of his parents, architectural blueprints, and the old deed of land stolen by Abadike. This is your legacy too, he told her. Our family was robbed, but together, we can rebuild it. Kayamika's eyes softened. And what if I don't want legacy? What if I just want a father? Victor's throat tightened. Then you'll have one. Always. Together, they began visiting construction sites. Victor showed her how he drew designs, how he imagined structures before they rose from the ground. To his surprise, Kayamika was fascinated. You see the world in lines and shapes, she said one afternoon, smiling faintly. Maybe I inherited that from you. Victor chuckled softly, hope stirring in his chest. Maybe you did. For the first time, they weren't strangers anymore. They were family beginning to heal. The inevitable day came. Amara passed peacefully in her sleep, her hands resting on the letters she once saved for Victor. The memorial service was held at a serene chapel in Ikoyi. Friends, family, and even some of Victor's colleagues attended. Chief Abadike was nowhere to be seen. His empire was crumbling under the weight of scandal. Victor stood at the altar, his voice breaking as he spoke. She was my first love, my greatest loss, and the bridge that brought me back to the daughter I never knew I had. Amara, I lost 20 years, but through you, I gained forever. Kayamika stood beside him, tears streaming, but her hand slipped into his. Together, they faced the mourners, united at last. After the service, as they walked outside, Victor whispered, his voice trembling but resolute. I can't change the past, Kayamika, but I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I never lose you again. She squeezed his hand tightly. Then don't, because I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over them. For the first time in decades, Victor felt whole. And though their journey had been forged in pain, it ended in hope, father and daughter, finally walking into the future together. The end.